level 1 through 4 neck dissection techniques. When you start learning neck dissection, it's important to think of it in layers and what structure is located adjacent to another structure. With that in mind, I'll share with you my surgical approach for neck dissection. You can start out with a curved linear incision from the mastoid tip that has a gentle curve towards the level of the cricoid. You want to avoid making an incision too high towards the level of the hyoid because you will have a hard time closing the neck in that situation. This will be a common problem in patients that's been previously been radiated, or in patients need a flap reconstruction with extra tissue bulk that will make the neck closure that much more difficult. If you need a bilateral neck dissection, then you want to design a wide apron incision skin flap. Similarly, you want to avoid creating a narrow base apron incision as it can also compromise neck closure. Lastly, you can design a tracheal incision somewhere between the cricoid and the sternal notch. It's important that the trach incision and its cavity does not communicate with neck dissection. So once you go through the skin, the next layer down will be the platysma. Platysma is an important layer because when you raise a skin flap, you want to preserve vascularity. So the platysma should be left attached on the skin flap. So you're going to make a horizontal incision across the platysma and then reflect the skin flap in the subplatysmal tissue plane towards the level of the mandible as well as towards the level of the clavicle. When you're raising the subplatysmal tissue plane, the two structures you want to preserve are the external jugular vein and the marginal mandibular nerve. The marginal mandibular nerve will be traveling inferior to the level of the mandible. It can be sometimes 2 finger breadths or lower, and people talk about using the facial vessels to reflect it up superiorly to protect the nerve. Now with that said, that is a crude way of protecting the nerve because depending on where you cut the vessels, you can still injure the nerve if it is too proximal to where the nerve will be traveling. Instead, you should be aware of a nerve that travels horizontally within the subplatysmal tissue plane. It can be 2 centimeters below the inferior border of the mandible, traveling superficial to the facial vein and facial artery, as well as a submandibular gland capsule. The submandibular gland capsule is a consistent landmark that can be used to identify the marginal mandibular nerve. From here, it will travel superiorly over the mandible towards the lower lip where it will innervate the motor function. Once you raise the subplatysmal flap to the level of the mandible, and you also reflect the marginal mandibular nerve superiorly along with your subplatysmal skin flap, you're now ready to proceed with level 1B dissection if it's indicated. We'll continue our discussion of developing the subplatysmal tissue plane along the superior posterior border with attention to preserving the external jugular vein. When you cut through the skin, the next layer down will be the platysma, and then deep to the platysma in the superior posterior corner, you might be able to see the greater auricular nerve. There's only one nerve that travels superficial to sternocleidomastoid muscle, that is a greater auricular nerve. If you sacrifice this, they'll give you numbness to the earlobe region. In neck dissection is sometimes routinely sacrificed, whereas in facelift or neck lift, you should try to preserve it as it is considered an undesirable complication in those patient population. Now the greater auricular nerve is an important structure as where it exits posteriorly, it points to the location of the accessory nerve. This location is commonly referred to as Erb's point, and the accessory nerve is found to be exiting superior to the Erb's point and 90% of the time, on average 1.5 centimeters superior to it. In the other 10% of the time, it will exit, as shown here, below the Erb's point or at the Erb's point. Now another structure that's important to note superficially to the sternocleidomastoid muscle is the external jugular vein. You should try to preserve this if you're doing a free flap reconstruction, as it can serve as a donor vessel for your free flap reconstruction. So in this case, we have already identified the greater auricular nerve and also the external jugular vein. So next structure deep to that is the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Because there are superficial lymph nodes located on top of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, the next step is to recruit the soft tissue from the posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and while leaving the greater radicular nerve and the extrajugular vein down on top of the SCM, you're going to roll the soft tissue towards the anterior border of the SCM so that it can be removed as part of the level 2 through 4 neck dissection. Once you retract the sternocleidomastoid muscle laterally, you'll then be able to identify the digastric muscle, which sits superficial to the great vessels and cranial nerve that must be protected during level 2 through 4 dissection. The digastric muscle, as well as the omohyoid muscle, serves as an important landmark. These two structures are located superficial to critical great vessels and cranial nerves that we'll be working to dissect. If you need to perform level 1B dissection, I generally like to start out in the superior medial corner and then catch up to level 2 through 4 neck dissection. For level 1B dissection, we're going to be focusing on the submandibular gland. You're going to grab the submandibular gland, and at this point, the marginal mandibular nerve that runs superficial to it should have been reflected superiorly. We're then going to drop the submandibular gland inferiorly. At the same time, you're going to dissect along the superior border of the submandibular gland to reach the deep aspect of the submandibular gland. By doing so, we'll expose the mylohyoid muscle. Using an Army-Navy retractor, you want to retract the mylohyoid forward and expose the hypoglossal nerve that's located along the deep aspect of the submandibular gland. Hypoglossal nerve is important because it provides motor function to the tongue. As such, it will impact speech as well as swallowing capabilities. Now, another nerve that you'll encounter is the lingual nerve. You will see the lingual nerve looping down towards the submandibular gland as it gives off innervation for the salivary production. It will travel along the lateral floor of mouth and travel superficial to the depth where the hypoglossal nerve travels. It also carries both sensation as well as taste from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. When you disconnect the innervation that runs from the lingual nerve to the submandibular gland, it is important to disconnect the nerve distal to the loop so that the sensation and the taste function is preserved. The other two structures that you identify are the facial vein as well as a facial artery. For free flap reconstruction, the facial artery and vein are generally the most preferred vessel option if it's available. So your goal is to disconnect them as close to the submandibular capsule as possible. So what's interesting about the facial vein is that it runs superficial to the digastric muscle, and interestingly, the facial artery is located deep to the digastric muscle. It's rare to see artery and vein running in two different tissue planes separated by a muscle. Once you have disconnected the lingual innervation to the gland as well as the facial artery, facial vein, and the submandibular duct, at this point you're essentially done with the level 1B dissection. You can leave the 1B content as part of the rest of the level 2 through 4, or you can leave it separated and pass it off as specimen and then focus on level 2 through 4 dissection. To start level 2 dissection, you want to be deep to the sternocleidomastoid muscle and deep to the digastric muscle and identify the internal jugular vein. Now, if you have hard time finding it, you could also follow the facial vein back because it will lead you right to the internal jugular vein. As mentioned previously, great vessels and cranial nerve that are important are located deep to the digastric muscle. Now, one of the common questions that I like to ask all my residents and medical students is what are the relationship that exists in level 2 between the cranial nerves and the great vessels. This is a key fact that one must be aware to perform safe dissection in the level 2 area. The relationship going superficial to the deep is accessory nerve is most superficial, deep to that is the internal jugular vein, and deep to that is the hypoglossal nerve, and deep to that is the carotid artery. So this is something that's very important to keep in mind as these structures essentially crisscross in level 2, and knowing the anatomic relationship is extremely important. Now, the variation to that is the accessory nerve and the internal jugular vein can sometimes flip, so that sometimes internal jugular vein can actually be on top of the cranial nerves. It is very important to be aware of this variation, even though it can occur anywhere from 5 to 20% depending on the studies. Because if you assume that an accessory nerve is lateral to the internal jugular vein when it's not, and you follow the accessory nerve up and just blindly cut things on top, you can actually cut right through the internal jugular vein. And that's why the understanding the variation is very important for that reason. With that said, anywhere from 80 to 95% of the studies mentions that the most common configuration going from superficial to deep is cranial nerve 11, IJ 12, carotid. So with that in mind, in level 2, once you identify the internal jugular vein, my then next goal is to identify the accessory nerve. Accessory nerves divide the level 2 into level 2B and level 2A. I generally will separate the level 2A from level 2B, and I generally come back and get level 2B separately. The level 2A content will be rolled down inferiorly to be part of the level 3 content. As you do so, your deep tissue plane is going to be the fascia that surrounds the muscular floor, and also there's going to be cervical plexus that you'll see. These look like large nerves that come from the floor of the neck. These are sensory nerves. In some institutions, this nerve would be routinely resected as part of the main specimen. However, in more recent years, the trend has been to preserve this nerve and keep the nerve down as part of the deep tissue plane and remove the fibrofatty tissue that exists superficial to the cervical plexus with an attempt to preserve the sensory nerve innervation to the inferior neck skin. As with anything else in the neck dissection, if there is concern for oncologic margin, you should sacrifice this nerve. And functionally, aside from the sensory numbness to the inferior neck, it doesn't really cause a huge problem. And as you move down internal jugular vein with level 2A content, you need to start looking for other critical structures as you move down. There's one nerve that travels superficial to the internal jugular vein, which is the ansa cervicalis. Ansa cervicalis is routinely resected as part of the main specimen when you're recruiting fibrofatty tissue posterolateral to the interjugular vein. This nerve is responsible for strap muscles, so if you actually see it stimulating, you can actually see the strap muscles moving. Now, why this is important is that if you are having a hard time identifying the hypoglossal nerve, you can see that ansa cervicalis can be followed back proximally to where the hypoglossal nerve comes out. So this is one method of identifying the hypoglossal nerve if you are having a hard time identifying it in grossly altered anatomy. Another reason why this nerve is important to recognize is that there are other nerves that travel in a vertical fashion similar to ansa cervicalis that must be protected. The structures that are deep to the interjugular vein are structures you generally want to preserve whenever possible, and these include the vagus nerve, phrenic nerve, and brachial plexus, along with the carotid artery. Once you take the ansa cervicalis as part of your main specimen and you're moving towards level 2 to 3, I generally like to start identifying structures in level 4 as well as structures that are deep to the interjugular vein. So first thing we'll identify will be the vagus nerve. You should start paying attention to the vagus nerve because it runs from the skull base all the way down into the chest. So you can encounter it at level 2, 3, and 4 as you follow the interjugular vein down. The vagus nerve is important because it gives rise to both superior laryngeal nerve as well as a recurrent laryngeal nerve. The recurrent laryngeal nerve travels within the tracheoesophageal groove deep to the thyroid gland to innervate the laryngeal muscles. So it is important for both speech as well as ability to maintain one's airway. Now, another reason why it's important is that it also gives rise to parasympathetic innervation to the internal organs. So as a result, you should never sacrifice bilateral vagus nerve because it causes severe dysfunction in the internal organs. But if absolutely necessary, in case of severe cancer invasion, you may need to sacrifice it to achieve negative margin, with the understanding that this will lead to permanent true vocal cord paralysis, which will result in hoarseness and possible aspiration. But at least for the internal organ function, as long as you preserve one side, it does not appear to cause a severe dysfunction. So going back, As you're moving level 2 to 4 in a vertical fashion, once you're deep to the interjugular vein, you need to start paying attention to the vagus nerve as well as the carotid artery. And there's one other nerve that also runs vertically that one should be aware of. This particular nerve is located deep to the carotid artery and is the sympathetic chain. It's important because it provides sympathetic innervation for the bodily function. If you sacrifice it for oncologic reasons, it will cause Horner syndrome, but overall, the functional loss from that is not severe. So you could certainly consider resection if necessary, but in general, you should try to preserve this. With that said, you really shouldn't be seeing the sympathetic chain because there's really no need to go medial to the carotid artery. So unless you're doing a laryngectomy, thyroidectomy, or esophageal perforation exploration along the spine, it's unlikely that you'll encounter this nerve. But whenever you're deep to the carotid artery, be mindful of the sympathetic chain as well as recurrent laryngeal nerve. Now that we have learned the structures to expect when you move vertically from level 2 to 4, the last piece of the puzzle is to figure out what goes on in the level 4 so that the content can be swept from level 4 up to level 3 and complete level 2 through 4 neck dissection. So level 4 is located deep to the SCM muscle and also the omohyoid muscle as you reach down. Generally, once you're deep to the sternocleidomastoid muscle and the omohyoid muscle, you should have already identified the internal jugular vein. Superficial to interjugular vein is the insula cervicalis, and this can be routinely sacrificed during neck dissection. Once you dissect posterior to the interjugular vein, you might encounter the transverse cervical artery and vein. This can be routinely sacrificed during level 4 neck dissection. In a neck without adequate donor vessels, sometimes transverse cervical artery and vein can be used as a free flap donor vessels. When you come down in level 2 through 4, the deep tissue plane is going to be prevertebral fascia, the fascia that surrounds the neck muscle, as well as a cervical plexus nerve, and you're going to remove the fibrofatty tissue that's located superficial to those structures. The reason why that's so critical in level 4 is that prevertebral fascia also surrounds anterior scalene and middle scalene. And adjacent to these structures, you'll find two critical nerve structures that should never be injured. Phrenic nerve is located superficial to the anterior scalene muscle, while brachial plexus is located between the anterior scalene and middle scalene muscle. These structures should never be injured, as phrenic nerve can lead to hemidiaphragm paralysis, and brachial plexus will result in paralysis of the arm, which can be devastating. So these are complications should never happen, and you can avoid the complication by staying superficial to the cervical plexus as well as prevertebral fascia. One unique complication to level 4 that can occur both right as well as the left side is that you might get a chyle leak. The thoracic duct drains the lymphatic system from the head and neck area as well as the body and delivers it back to the venous system by the brachiocephalic vein located at the junction of the internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein. The right thoracic duct may not be consistently present, while the left thoracic duct is typically present. The thoracic duct as well as the lymphatic duct appear as clear vessels without blood inside it. The way you avoid chyle leak is you clip or tie fibrofatty content that's being recruited from the inferior border, and you can also perform Valsalva at the end of the neck dissection to see if you see any clear fluid or milky fluid leaking, which represents chyle leaks. Once you lift the content from the level 4, you're going to sweep it up towards level 3 and remove it from the undersurface of the sternocleidomastoid muscle while being careful to not injure the accessory nerve. And if you have left level 2B content, you can come back and sweep the accessory nerve out of the way while you recruit the level 2B content and pass it off as specimen. Thank you for watching, and special thanks to co-authors for their contribution. I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we'll demonstrate the surgical techniques described in this lecture in a surgical case.